Welcome to Uncomfortable Conversations at the Thriving Women Network. I'm Rona McBain.
And I'm CJ Grace.
And today is April the 1st, a day dedicated to humor and practical jokes. The story apparently goes back to 16th century France, when the Gregorian calendar, introduced by Pope Gregory XIII, replaced the Julian calendar, established in Roman times by Julius Caesar. The new Gregorian calendar started each year on January the 1st, but the old Julian system began the year on April the 1st. It took a while for people to adjust to the change, so some folks kept celebrating the new year on April the 1st, and they were widely mocked as April Fools.
Seriously, though, if you are new to our conversations, thank you for supporting our mission to encourage individuals to have uncomfortable conversations. The goal is to be willing to listen to learn dissimilar perspectives without bias or judgment.
And hang on a minute, did I just say I was Rona McBain? I must have got confused. I am actually CJ Grace, a former BBC journalist, and my life experience and love of absurd humor, especially Monty Python, inspired me to write two comic self-help books, Adulterer's Wife, How to Thrive Whether You Stay or Not, and the memoir, My Wild Ride, How to Thrive After Breast Cancer and Infidelity.
If you're CJ Grace, that means I'm Rona McBain, a creative intelligence strategist. I should know my own name, right? Founder of the Originator Lab, my company shows you how to master creative intelligence. We move beyond solving problems to re-engineering how you see your business, resulting in good decisions and the momentum needed to build the future of your work. Today is April 1st, a day dedicated to jokes and laughters. So this special episode of Uncomfortable Conversations is looking at the power of humor. You may have heard of Dr. Patch Adams, who advocates for incorporating humor and play into medical care. Robin Williams portrayed him in the 1998 biopic, Patch Adams. But humor can not only be used for healing and therapy, but also to help you tackle difficult conversations and create positive change.
And today's guest has made literally millions of readers laugh, think, and feel seen. Gina Barreca is a best-selling author, women's humorist, internationally renowned speaker, and professor of feminist theory. And her 1991 classic on women's humor, They Used to Call Me Snow White, But I Drifted, was followed by numerous other bestsellers. Her latest book, published in 2025, is Gina School. It's not what they teach you, it's what you learn. And that is described as her most personal, provocative, and laugh out loud collection yet. Now, Gina has been a frequent guest on Oprah, as well as appearing on American Masters, The American Life, The Today Show, CNN, and the BBC. And her work has been published by the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the LA Times, Cosmopolitan, Forbes, and the Harvard Business Review. And Gina's blog for Psychology Today has more than 8 million views. That's a lot of views. You can find her in the Library of Congress, or maybe, when she's on her off time, the makeup aisle at Walgreens. So we are excited to be meeting Gina live in the studio later in the show. But let's take a quick sneak peek to find out why she sees humor as a survival tool.
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn. So if you're not funny in Brooklyn, they're going to kill you. So, I mean, it is really a survival skill. My next door neighbor in Brooklyn, we didn't know it then, but she turned out to be Judge Judy. She's Judy Shineman, and who is exactly who she is in her television life, as she was when she was sitting on the bench as a judge in real life, and then a judge on TV. And so we grew up to be, if you were going to be a girl in the neighborhood and figure out any way to be heard, to be addressed, to get into the conversation, even edgewise, you had to be funny. Nobody was going to hang around to listen to a girl speak. I'm 69 years old. Listen to a girl speak unless she had something smart and funny to say. So that was the only way to actually develop a personality and get through the day in Brooklyn.
Definitely a personality. So Gina Barreca. Stay tuned. Gina will be our special guest today. Humor can be a double-edged sword. It can be used with malice to insult someone, like making a joke at their expense. Alternatively, it can be used to bring a sense of joy, fun, and showing you're okay with not taking yourself too seriously. People laugh together creates a feeling of community and goodwill. Humor, if used effectively, can help you deal with difficult conversations and negotiations of all kinds.
And in addition, as the old adage says, laughter is the best medicine. And a 2016 study in the American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine indicates that it has quantifiable positive effects, both psychological and physiological. Laughter yoga, developed in 1995 by Madan Kataria in India, combines prolonged laughter with yogic breathing techniques, creating an exercise lasting 15 to 20 minutes. Well, I'm not sure I could get myself to laugh for that long, and I'd rather do it naturally with friends than have to take sort of chortling classes. But nevertheless, according to laughter yoga instructor Judy Mikeska from Sonoma, California, she says prolonged voluntary laughter not only improves your mood, but also strengthens the immune system, lowers blood pressure, reduces pain, and lowers stress.
American journalist Norma Cousins declared that hearty laughter is a good way to jog internally without having to go outdoors. He had an intimate knowledge of the healing power of laughter. Cousins was immobile and in extreme pain from ankylosing spondylitis.
Ankylosing spondylitis.
I even practiced that. Anyway, the type of
that disease. It's a type of arthritis causing inflammation of the spine. But let us know, what did he do to relieve his pain, Rona?
He watched comedies like Marx Brothers films and Candid Camera and discovered that just 10 minutes of induced hearty laughter would give him about 2 hours of painless sleep. His battles with illness and his discovery of laughter as therapy is detailed in his 1979 book, Anatomy of Illness as Perceived by the Patient. Can laughter be better for your body than going to the gym? Let's hear Karen Buxman, a pioneer in the field of applied humor who spent years researching the intersection between brain and humor.
Hey everybody, Dr. Morg here again. So when I was a junior in college, my mom was killed in a car accident. It was a sudden...
Hi, I'm Karen Buxman, neurohumorist. I have a question for you. If you had to choose between 10 minutes on a rowing machine or 2 minutes of belly laughter, which would you choose? I know which one I would choose. If you chose 10 minutes on a rowing machine, come on, get out, go on, go. Now, if you chose 2 minutes of belly laughter, keep watching. In a previous video, I talked about the 3 primary purposes that you would apply humor. Those being entertainment, influence, and well-being. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into well-being. This has to do with health, resilience, and spirituality. So, let's start with health. It's wonderful that the field of psychoneuroimmunology now supports what we've known for many hundreds, thousands of years. Mary Hart doeth good like a medicine. And Dr. Lee Burke, my friend at Loma Linda, who is a psychoneuroimmunologist, said that if we took what we now know about laughter and bottled it, it would require FDA approval. It is that powerful. When you look at how humor affects us positively, it affects almost every single body system. Studies have been done on the immune system, on the cardiovascular system, on the endocrine system, on the musculoskeletal system. Humor has been shown to decrease pain. It's been shown to decrease inflammation. It's been shown to even affect us at the level of epigenetics. If you haven't seen my TEDx talk yet, How Humor Can Save the World, put that on your list. It's on YouTube, and I go into more detail about how humor affects us at the genetic level, the cellular level, and even beyond. Epigenetics, baby. It's amazing. So to employ humor purposefully and on a regular basis can improve almost every single body system, give you more energy, make you feel better. Why would you not want to do this? There was a study done by a very dear friend of mine, Dr. William Fry, and he found in a study that people who laughed, a belly laugh, for 2 minutes, it was the aerobic equivalent of 10 minutes on a rowing machine. I know. Can you believe it? How many of you have those expensive sweater hangers like I do, also known as a Nordic track or a treadmill or a stationary bicycle or elliptical machine? 2 minutes of belly laughter. Now, if you've not laughed for 2 minutes in a very long time, start slowly. Check with your doctor. Okay, so let's also take a look at resilience, because humor can diminish stress and relieve anxiety, help people express anger in a socially acceptable way, and it can increase your bandwidth. And the more you practice humor, the more bandwidth that you build. And this is a good thing. You want to have this bandwidth and have that resilience for those times where you're going to need it. It's like trying to go to the bank and make a big withdrawal when you haven't been making any deposits. I'm going to tell you, the bank frowns on that. Not that I would know, just saying for a friend. So you want to be making those deposits, and practicing experiencing humor on a daily basis has been shown to provide those wonderful benefits in terms of resilience. In terms of spirituality, every major religion has expressed the importance of joy and laughter, whether it was Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, New Thought. They all talk about the experience and the importance of joy and laughter. It really helps connect us to our source, to our higher power, to our God, to our universe, whatever you want to call that. And so by, again, tapping into this intentionally can help move you along your spiritual path in a more joyful way.
So that was neurohumorist Karen Buxman talking about the therapeutic value of humor. So let's talk about how humor works. It can uplift you, or if it falls flat or it's too insulting, it can have very negative repercussions. So, for example, what if I say, I'm going to make a joke by throwing out a racist insult? Would I be skating on thin ice there? Even so, I'm going to do it. It's April the 1st. We're doing a whole show on humor and jokes. Here it goes. Hab, soshli, kush. That's an insult. Do you know what language that is? Any ideas?
I do not.
You do not. Well, I have to admit, I'm a Trekkie, and in Klingon, it's one of the worst insults you can throw at somebody because it means your mother has a smooth forehead. But one time I said that, a woman from planet Earth shot back with, no, she doesn't. My mom's in her 70s and her forehead is all wrinkly. So, but that's just to show you that some of the best humor makes the audience feel temporarily uncomfortable, but then it resolves in an unexpected way to make them laugh. And the message here is, choose your humor carefully. Think about the effect it might have on the folks you're speaking to. Are there places that you should definitely not be making jokes or laughing? What about at a funeral? Dr. Melissa Mork is a bereavement therapist who believes that laughter has an important role in helping people process their grief.
Hey everybody, Dr. Morg here again. So when I was a junior in college, my mom was killed in a car accident. It was a sudden, unexpected, violent way to lose your mom at a relatively young age. So I drove home from college to be with my dad and my siblings, and we had to plan the funeral. We had to pick out the casket and her burial clothes and plan the funeral, and it was a really, really hard week. And then at the funeral, which was a fairly formal, certainly somber event, the pastor stopped in the middle of the service and he said, "I want everyone here to turn to a neighbor and share a favorite story about Trudy." My dad, my siblings, and I, we couldn't participate, but we listened. And at first we heard sniffles and whispers. But pretty quickly we heard giggles and chuckles and snorts and guffaws, and the walls of the church were shaking with laughter because my mom had been a really funny woman. And that laughter was like a balm on my spirit. I realized in that moment, I could get through this. I could do this as hard as it was going to be. And trust me, it's been really hard. I could get through it. If I could laugh, if I was allowed to laugh, I could do it. So now I do therapy, bereavement therapy as part of my clinical work. And one of my favorite interventions in grief or bereavement therapy is to ask the client, when did you laugh together? When did you play together? How did you tease her? How did she tease you? What did he do to make you smile? How did you celebrate each other? Because when we focus on how we hurt each other, how we fought, what I regret I have done or said, I feel further away from the person. But when I can talk about how we laughed together, how we played, how we enjoyed one another, I feel closer to the person. And that's one of the tasks of grief therapy, is to reestablish a relationship with a person who is no longer physically present. And so my encouragement to you, if you're grieving today, is to think about the ways that you played together and how you made each other laugh. I'm Dr. Mork. Don't forget to laugh. I'll see you soon.
That is so true. So true. Psychologist Dr. Melissa Mork. Today's strategy is to help you navigate uncomfortable conversations by use of humor. TEDx speaker and neurohumorist Karen Buxman, a pioneer in the field of applied humor, describes how humor prevented a deadlocked negotiation between sworn enemies from degrading into a potential nuclear war. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by Biz in Your Box, the first of its kind Prime membership for thriving entrepreneurs, small to mid-sized business owners. Biz in Your Box is your board of directors for your business. BYB provides coaching, connections, and a culture that helps you grow your business. To learn more, visit our website and subscribe to our TWN magazine.
October 1962. The doomsday clock is 7 minutes until midnight. The Cuban Missile Crisis is careening forward. For 13 days, America and Russia have been rattling their nuclear sabers. As a little girl, I'm not afraid of the bombs. I'm afraid of the fear in my father's face. That's what keeps me awake at night. Negotiations between the two superpowers are deadlocked. A handful of stone-faced gentlemen glare at one another around a mahogany boardroom table. The tension is palpable as these men literally hold the fate of the world in their hands. And then one of the Soviet delegates tells a joke. A joke. What is difference between capitalism and communism? In capitalism, man exploits man. In communism, it's other way around. Both sides laugh. The tension breaks. The talks resume. And you know the rest of the story. They avoid blowing up the planet. And this matters not just in diplomacy, but in every difficult conversation we face. Today, the clock is closer to midnight than ever. We need humor not as escape, but as connection, because humor breaks tension, opens dialogue, and makes difficult conversations possible. Don't wait. The clock is ticking. Humor is power.
Well, hey, Brian, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Dimitri.
Fantastic.
And how are you on this fine day?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that.
Oh, I thought you'd be dreadful today because you're always fantastic.
Hey, it's a beautiful day, man, and we're having an uncomfortable conversation. So welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. If you're just tuning in, today's topic of conversation is the healing power of forgiving someone. I am your host, Dimitri Mills Jr. I'm a digital nomad, MBA, and serial entrepreneur dedicated to the FIRE movement. I help business owners and individuals reclaim their time. In a company called CRM Chains, I automate the heavy lifting of business operations. And through LLTIP, which is living life to its potential, I show you how to protect your profits and reach FIRE, financial independence, retire early as soon as possible, and build the system so you can stop working and start living. Brian.
All right. Well, and I'm Brian Wardale, suicide attempt survivor who has used humor for many years, first to mask my symptoms of depression and anxiety. But now I've used humor to heal. I am co-founder of Survivors of Hopelessness, and we want to help children to develop the skills to deal with complex and difficult emotions before they reach that terminal stage. So, thank you very much, Dimitri.
Yep. So
Dimitri, I think you're playing a bit of
So Stephen taught that forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a permanent attitude. He believed it requires daily work, much like physical fitness, to maintain a heart free of bitterness. He stated that if he had forgiven his attacker, he would be a dead man already. Forgiveness.
Dimitri, I think you're pulling my leg. I think you're trying to read last week's script and pass it off.
Well, go for it, Brian. Why don't you take over for me? I have no idea.
All right. Well, so Dimitri, I'll ask you. You work with a lot of business professionals. Do you incorporate humor in what you do?
Absolutely. Humor is an icebreaker, and it's a universal way to talk to people in a lot of ways. The only time it comes into a problem is when the culture doesn't understand your humor.
Well, I mean, that is absolutely the case, right? It's very dependent on the people involved. You and I and the audience, that can totally shift the humor dynamic. So, Dimitri,
Right.
Did you know that April is International Humor Month?
Wow.
Surprise,
Okay.
surprise. A global initiative dedicated to highlighting the therapeutic, social, and emotional benefits of laughter and joy. The event was started back in 1976 by Larry Wilde, who is a celebrated author and comedian with the goal of bringing awareness to the value of laughter. He wrote more than 50, pardon me, 50 humor books, including hundreds of jokes. As well as the silliness and pranks associated with April 1st, the initiative includes International Moment of Laughter Day on April 14th, when folks are supposed to explicitly stop and laugh at a specific time, adding to the month's festivities. Participants are encouraged to pause, smile, and laugh out loud, especially in public, to spread positivity. How do you feel about doing that, Dimitri?
Well, not sure about that. It is the day before we've all got to file our taxes in the US, and today is April Fool's Day. So I hope you appreciated my April Fool's joke. so Brian, go for it.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
Okay, so Brian.
Oh no, it is me. Oh, gee whiz. I'm totally discombobulated. So yes, International Humor Month is now directed by the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, known as AATH. It's a national organization focused on humor research and the application of humor as therapy, founded in 1987 by Allison Crane, RN. Allison was one of the leading public speakers throughout the 1980s on the therapeutic uses of humor in healthcare. She started the association in a spare bedroom of her home after it became apparent that audiences wanted more access to research-based information on all aspects of humor. The attracts members from various fields, collates humor research, and puts on annual conferences with nationally renowned speakers. This year's conference takes place on May 14th to 17th in San Diego, and the theme is On the Edge, Humor in the Hard Places. The also runs a 3-year college-level program to train certified humor professionals with graduates from all over the world. So let's hear from one of Humor Academy's founders, neurohumorist researcher Karen Buxman, who has been inducted into the National Speaker Association Hall of Fame.
Hi, I'm Karen Buxman, and I have the honor of being the past president of the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, also known as AATH, and one of the co-founders of the Humor Academy. The Humor Academy is for those who are really wanting to do a deeper dive into the field and study of applied and therapeutic humor. It's in alignment with the mission of AATH, which is being the community for professionals who want to study, practice, and promote healthy humor. In this 3-year program, the first year we cover foundational concepts. We look at what humor really is and what does it entail and what are the benefits. It's just a very nice groundwork so that you have the knowledge then to build upon the next year, because the second year is about application. AATH is applied in therapeutic humor. We don't want you to just know how good it is. We want you to experience how good it is. And in the second level of the Humor Academy, students create a special project and they back that up with research. Now, don't panic. The research doesn't require a cauldron or a lab coat or anything like that. You don't need an IRB or any of those kinds of things. But what you're going to do is find an area of interest with the help of your advisors, something that you would like to delve deeper into, and then create a project around that. The students have been so creative in these, and the ripple effect of their projects is not just local. Many of their projects have had a global ripple effect. It's so powerful. You're going to just love that. And then the third year, for you to take what you've learned about the foundation, about theory, about practice, and put that into gear for leadership. Whether that's leadership in your personal life, whether it's leadership in your professional life, whether it's leadership within an organization, we want to show you how humor has the power to strengthen your leadership skills. When you complete the 3 years, you are now eligible to be certified as a humor professional. And we have graduated, oh my gosh, more than 60, I should know this number, but we've graduated more than 60 CHPs, or certified humor professionals, to date from 6 different continents. Get out of here. Can you believe that? North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia, Africa. Apparently there's not a big call for applied and therapeutic humor among penguins in Antarctica, but we're working on it. If this sounds of interest to you, then I highly encourage you to delve deeper onto our website, get involved in our social media, ask us questions, get involved. AATH is active on Facebook. It's also active on Twitter and on LinkedIn. If you are someone who is interested in diving deeper into the benefits of applied and therapeutic humor, then I think we're your community. We're your peeps that you've been looking for. We're a lot of fun. And so many people say it's a life-changing experience. I know it's changed my life. I really believe it can change yours. So I hope that you'll reach out to us, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Humor Academy.
Hey, Brian.
All right.
She said that there's low adoption of penguins with the humor. Do you know why?
Why is
Because
that?
they have cold feet.
Oh,
Sorry, I just couldn't resist to throw that in there.
I appreciate it. Well, even if you do live in Antarctica, now you know how to become a certified humor professional through the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor. The strategic use of humor sparks a connection, increases the influence, improves communication, and can be used as a competitive advantage in any industry. In addition, humor provides numerous benefits to our health and well-being, including reduced stress, greater resilience, decreased depressive symptoms, and even increased pain tolerance. Using humor effectively in difficult conversations requires sensitivity, though there is that caveat. Now, Dimitri, just one sec. A joke that you might make about yourself to others, or might make about yourself in front of others to put them at ease or lighten the atmosphere, could be really insulting if it was, done differently. So, Dimitri, do you remember that time? And I still giggle about it. When we were on the show and before we went live, your camera disconnected, so your
Sure.
screen was all black, and CJ is like, Dimitri, you're black.
And I was like, yeah, I'm like that every day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, or I was born that way, or but that would have been a little different if somebody else had made that comment. It's like, hey, Dimitri, your screen's gone black, and he was always like that.
Sure.
That would be, and it would depend on who. It would depend on you. Some people would be fine with that. Some people would be insulted. It would depend on who said it, who you're with, how comfortable you are with them, all that kind of thing.
Right. No, I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you so very much. So I did. It's funny. I did turn my video black on, I was just like born that way. So it's just. So it's difficult to be funny on demand, especially without treading on our toes and insulting people. A lot of jokes from decades past would be seen as racist, sexist, or homophobic in today's environment. TEDx speaker and therapeutic humor research Karen Buxman has said it's more important to see funny than to be funny. She talks about intentionally looking for humor in your everyday life. According to Karen, being mindful of what brings joy triggers the reticular activating system in your brain, which will cause you to notice more humorous things. Interesting.
So yeah, like finding humor can be more important. Well, that's really cool. So our viewers, please stay tuned. In our next segments, our co-hosts CJ and Rona will be talking to the president of Turkmenistan, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov. You ever heard of him? You know my
Not
boy?
before today. And
Oh, wait a minute. I beg your pardon. Humorist Gina Barreca. Wow. Gotta get my glasses changed. Um, She is one of the funniest women in America who's been a frequent guest on Oprah, as well as appearing on the Today Show, CNN, and the BBC. Gina's blog for Psychology Today has more than 8 million views. That is a lot. You've been watched by a lot of people, Gina. Now, we've already talked about using humor in a conciliatory way to deal with difficult conversations. But let's find out from Gina how humor can be used almost as a kind of martial art to deflect the barbs when folks are trying to put you down.
Mm.
And as a reminder, something that's deadly serious. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by Biz in Your Box, the first of its kind Prime membership for thriving entrepreneurs and small to mid-sized business owners. Biz in Your Box is your board of directors for your business. BYB provides the coaching, the connections, and a culture to help you grow your business. To learn more, visit our website and subscribe to our magazine.
So how to deal with conversations that are difficult with humor, so that somebody comes up and say, when our grandfathers went here. One of my favorite stories was by the Liz Carpenter, who was the first woman to work as a press person for she was working for Lady Bird Johnson. And she wrote a book after her tenure was up with the Johnson administration called Ruffles and Flourishes. And so John Schlesinger Jr., a statesman and writer in his own right, comes up to her after her book is published and does very well and says, "Oh, loved your book, Liz. Who wrote it for you?" Now that's what I think of as very masculine. "Oh, what's the matter, honey? Just kidding. Can't you take a joke?" No sense of humor. "Come on, I'm just kidding. We're all friends here." So, she's, and my first, or a lot of people's, especially a lot of women's first responses is like, "Why are you trying to undermine my accomplishment? I worked so hard on this. This is terrible. Why can't you just be kind?" But what Liz Carpenter said that made her an early heroine of mine, when Arthur Schlesinger says, "Loved your book, Liz. Who wrote it for you?" She says, "Glad you liked it, Arthur. Who read it to you?" And it's like, all right, you want to play? Then let's play. Gloves are off, then gloves are off. But you are not handing me this, 40-pound medicine ball to carry around with this comment. Because most of us get something like that, and then we go home and it's l'esprit de l'escalier, right? We're thinking, I should have said this and I should have said this, and the next time I'm going to say this, and we're writing things down in the middle of the night. But what Liz Carpenter does is come up. But then from the audience, people put their hands up and go, "But what if Arthur Schlesinger Jr. is secretly illiterate?" They start to feel guilty, right? What if he has a kid who's like doing Hooked on Phonics? What if he has a grandchild who's dyslexic? I mean, no, if we're going to play, we're going to play. So humor, I see humor as in those difficult situations as often being a kind of martial art. You're using the aggression that's coming towards you back at the aggressor. You're not doing it to initiate, but somebody is doing something like that, then it is fair to turn it back out and to mirror it and sort of shine it back out on them.
CJ,
Wow.
Do you have the right script?
I'm
And the
sorry.
right
What's the name of this show?
Do we have the right guest?
I think the guest is probably the only right thing on the show today. Welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. I'm CJ Grace, co-hosting this segment with Rona McBain. I really am CJ Grace. She really is Rona McBain. And if you're just tuning in, our conversation topic is the power of humor as a therapeutic tool and to help deal with uncomfortable situations of all kinds. Well, we just heard from Gina Barreca on video, but we're excited to actually have her live in the flesh, in the studio. She is a best-selling humorist, author, speaker, and a professor of feminist theory. Now, Gina has been called smart and funny by People magazine, and very, very funny for a woman by Dave Barry. Now, Gina was deemed also a feminist humor maven by Ms. Magazine. And Gina, on top of all this, she has just won the 2026 Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of Applied Humor Therapy, the AATH, not the AARP, the AATH. So there you go. Gina, welcome. We're so honored to have you on the show today. Congratulations on winning that award. And first of all, I wanted to ask you, you grew up in a Sicilian family in New York. So how did that build your humor skills?
As I believe in the clip that you played earlier, just growing up in Brooklyn and growing up in an Italian family, there was a lot of speaking going on. And women and girls were not particularly well listened to, and that I learned worked both ways. There were conversations that were had in the kitchen among the aunts, and my aunts were like the old ladies. They don't make anymore. They were about 4'2". They all weighed about 650 pounds. They all wore floral print dresses at all times. So if a group of them were gathered together, it looked like there were ottomans scattered around the floor. The only difference was they didn't have buttons on the top of their heads, but otherwise it was like they were on casters. They would move easily through the kitchen. And we would have, especially if it's a holiday weekend, I mean, whether it's Passover, Easter, whatever you're celebrating, it's spring weekend. And they would have the immediate family of 110 come for dinner. And so there was always cooking going on. And the women would laugh among themselves. And they would laugh, I noticed, without having the word feminist was not thrown around in 1962 in my house. And but that the women would laugh differently when they were with the men than when they were with the other women. So the women would go, all right, let's tell Tony, I got the meat at the butcher he doesn't like. I'm going to tell him I got it at the butcher he doesn't like. I got it at the butcher he likes. But I'm going to tell him I got it at the butcher he doesn't like. Let's see what he does. It was like men were a chemistry experiment. These were beloved. They were the brothers and the uncles and the fathers and their sons and the cousins. They were fabulous. They were kings. They were princes. It didn't mean that they didn't make fun of them. So they would go up to Tony, who was sitting like he was, Juan Valdez tasting the coffee, and he was sitting there, and one Aunt Josie would go to Aunt Rose, and she'd say, Tony, we know you have a fine palate, so you could tell, but I didn't get the meat at the place you really like. The kids, it was so busy with everything this week. One was in a play. I had to go to the butcher on the corner. I don't know what you're going to think. And the women are all silent, and they're looking at each other because she got it at the real butcher. She's just telling him she didn't get it at the real butcher. And Tony, out of authority, takes a piece and looks up and goes, girls, or however old you were a girl. Girls, it's fine. It's good. It's fine. It's different, but it's fine. And the women are all going, it's different? Oh, Tony, I'm so glad we told you because we knew with your fine palate. Oh, the difference? Nothing. And then they would go to the basement or outside, and they would laugh, and they would laugh and laugh. And it's different from the way women laugh with men. And I still see it with my students. Women laugh with men. They go, And no woman made that noise when she's having a good time. When we're laughing, always like this, and we're wiping mascara, and we're going, don't make me pee in my pants. And it's a very different affect, shall we say, from the fake silver bell tinkling laughter, and when women are starting to slam their hands down on the table and making things shake. So there's lots of things that influence laughter. So I learned that real laughter and fake laughter were different at that Sicilian Brooklyn table. I learned the power of storytelling. I learned that, as Karen Buxman has said, as other people in the field have said, that real humor, it's not about jokes. It's about found stories. Real comics have always simply listened carefully to what's said and then taken it back and put a frame around it so that you hear it. And that's what makes people laugh, because it's about shared experience. And that's why humor, to go back to interesting sort of chance synchronicities from earlier conversations, in an interesting way, humor can be about forgiveness, because humor allows us to reconcile our emotional books. If you ask someone the funniest story about their childhood, they'll often tell you something terrible that happened to them, because in telling that, in making it into a funny story, it allows us to heal. It allows us to own a moment that was otherwise lost to regret or sadness or loneliness or isolation or a mistake. But if we can tell a story about it, it allows us to comfort ourselves and make it into something else. It's transformative. It's getting your deposit back on life.
So how do you use humor to cope with difficult conversations? And actually, on the subject of uncomfortable conversations, I heard that Oprah got your name wrong the last time you appeared on her show. So tell us about that. How did you deal with that uncomfortable situation?
I would have changed my name. I mean, whatever Oprah calls you is your name. Are you kidding? That was fine. She's doing like Rebecca Barreca. It's fine. I always thought if I had a daughter, I would name her Barbara.
Rebecca Barreca. It really rolls off the tongue.
Rebecca Barreca. Just so when they say, can you spell that? Barbar. I mean, she would never get a credit card. It would be fun. But the funny thing, when I was on, the last time I was on Oprah, I was on with two women who were referred to themselves as the Rules Girls, who wrote a book on very narrow ways that you were permitted to attract men. And at one point, Oprah sat down, because basically I got into an argument that like we were fishwives, and because they when I walked onto the stage, the blonde, who is as blonde as I am, said, well, Dr. Barreca, and she made doctor sound like, like I stepped on her gerbil. Dr. Barreca, how many times have you been married? And this is live television. I said, well, it's recorded, but recorded was live. And I said, I've been married twice. And she goes, well, we're both on our first marriage. And I said, yeah, honey, but I'm on my last. And the audience was immediately with me. So that's somebody who thought she was going to have advantage of what she was trying to make an uncomfortable conversation. But that's where you take hold of the uncomfortable conversation. That's where you say, oh, no. That's going back to the martial arts part. It's like you have to have the next thing ready that you're going to say to counter what somebody thinks. This is where bullying humor can actually be dismantled if you're ready to pay attention to what the person has just said. But that's where you, again, have to pay constant, even hovering attention to somebody who might be trying to make you uncomfortable, to use their strategy to make sure that you're the one who is actually in control of your responses. So humor is a really useful strategy in terms of getting through life.
So you can use humor both as a weapon, as you've shown, in a martial arts kind of way, but also as a tool to create community. So what would you say is the difference between those two different types of humor?
Great question. The idea of creating community through humor. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about laughing together. The closest the two people can get without touching is laughing together. Because when you can get somebody to really laugh with you, you've made a connection. Even if you're disagreeing with them, you ever really laugh at something that is profoundly different from what your belief system is or your ethics or whatever, but there's something that's funny in it. You laugh at something that somebody who's on the opposite end of the political spectrum says, they've reached you. If you laugh, it means you understand. And that's really scary. And that's where humor can reach places that other forms of rhetoric, other forms of speech don't go. Because you can, the moment somebody recognizes the truth in what you're saying, does that somersault with you, it's like you've got them. Somebody who might not listen to a 3.5 hour argument about something, if you get them to laugh. So I was one of the first women at basically the last Ivy League school to go co-ed, Dartmouth College. And they were not expecting me on that campus when I got there, and I wasn't expecting them. So we were all a little surprised by ourselves as the first girl in my family to go to college or to graduate from high school in a timely fashion, for that matter. And so when I got there, the guys named Skip and Chip and Trace were all going. When all grandfathers went here, there were no women. And for 3 years, I tried to explain, well, gender equity in terms of access to education is blah, blah. Nobody listened. And by my last year, I said, when your grandfathers went here, there were no indoor lights. Things get better. And that they heard and they laughed. And then they were pissed off that they laughed because they didn't want to hear it. And they could screen out the long arguments, but they couldn't screen out the things get better. So that they remembered. So humor is useful in terms of being memorable when making a point, and especially if it's a difficult or politically charged or emotionally charged point.
Well, I can't ask all the questions. I know Rona has at least one. She wants to ask him at least one question here before we go to our next break.
Yes. So Gina, your first comedy bestseller was back in 1990, but you're still writing humor books now. So yes. How would you say humor has changed over the last 40 years? And are there any taboos now that weren't back then?
Well, again, great question. No, humor has always been about facing taboos. And the taboos are pretty much the same. The taboos are everything you're not allowed to mention in polite conversation. And so taboos are money, sex, life, death, health, illness. It's everything that counts as a hard conversation. It's about injustice, it's inequity, it's all the stuff you can't say at the table that people hide. It's about secrets, it's about depression, it's about incontinence, it's about bodies. It's about what can and can't be controlled. I wouldn't say it's very different from what it was. There are many things that we, over the last 15 years, has been a wild ride, but it's always been a wild ride. When Mae West was strutting her stuff on vaudeville, she was jailed for writing a play called Sex. And she wrote a play called Sex and produced it and appeared in it. And she knew she was going to be jailed for doing that. Anytime a woman opened her mouth and actually talked about sex as opposed to performing it, she was considered outrageous. I mean, she was just supposed to keep her mouth in use for other reasons, but certainly not to make a point. And I don't think that's very different. I think that the idea of we're going back to ideas of what women are allowed to do or not allowed to do. I think the straitjacket of masculinity is as confining as the straitjacket of femininity, but I think it's tailored differently. And I think that the idea of sexuality on a spectrum has always been the case. There have always been drag shows. Shakespeare is writing characters who were revealed to be male or revealed to be female on stage, and that was because there were single-sex actors during Shakespeare Day, but it didn't mean that the idea of pansexuality wasn't there. Nothing is new. We all think we're so hip and that this is something new. There is nothing new. Nobody's that original. And so humor has been making fun of the same stuff for since the Commedia dell'arte was played in pits, since Aristophanes was writing the frogs.
Well, Gina, our co-hosts Brian and Dimitri do not want to be left out of the fun here, and they're eager to ask you some more questions. So you'll meet them after the next video. So I'm going to pivot here because one of the darkest eras in human history was the Holocaust. Yet even during that terrible time, Jews used humor as a vital coping strategy. And Israeli researcher Chaya Ostrower spoke to 55 survivors of the Nazi ghettos and concentration camps about this particular subject as research for her doctoral thesis. Clinical psychologist and grief expert Dr. Melissa Mork, a close friend of the researcher, explains more. First of all, let me remind you, though, that Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by Biz in Your Box, described as the first of its kind Prime membership for thriving entrepreneurs and small to mid-sized business owners, providing coaching, connections, and a culture to help you grow your business. If you'd like to learn more, visit our website, thrivingwomennetwork.com, and subscribe to the TWN magazine.
So she asked each of them one question, just one question. Tell me a time when you saw or used humor during the Holocaust in the ghettos, concentration camps, or death camps. And the study itself is incredibly moving. When she was telling me about her findings, I found myself laughing out loud and then weeping at the resilience that was shown through humor and laughter. There was scatological humor, which is toilet humor. There was self-deprecating humor. There was dark humor, gallows humor, food humor. And so she cataloged all of these different categories of humor that was being used. But the meta view, the overview of this were kind of the summary comments that some of the participants made. One of the statements was, humor was one of the primary ingredients of mental perseverance. This mental perseverance was a condition for a will to live. Another participant said this was the integral part of our inner mental struggle for our identity, the fact that we could still laugh at things like these. And a third said, look, without humor, we would have all committed suicide. We make fun of everything. What I'm actually saying is that humor helped us remain human, even under the hardest conditions. Viktor Frankl, if you've read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, yay. If you haven't, you should. Every adult should read this book. And he writes, it is well known that humor, more than anything else in the human makeup, can afford us an aloofness, an ability to rise above any situation, even if only for a few seconds. And when he reflected on how men survived the camps, he wrote, humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation. I'm a psychologist, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention Sigmund Freud. He wrote in one of his essays, Mourning and Melancholia, which, hey, yeah, Leslie says Man's Search for Meaning is an amazing book. I agree. I read it at least once a year. I reference it in my book. I love that book so much. But Sigmund Freud, this article, this essay, Mourning, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, and Melancholia, he writes about the difference between grief and depression. But he writes, humor is not resigned. It is rebellious. It signifies triumph in the face of adverse real circumstances.
Wow. Hey, Gina.
Hiya. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. So you've tuned in to Uncomfortable Conversations. I'm Dimitri Mills, and today's topic is the power of humor. We're continuing our conversation with Gina Barreca. Did I say it right?
Nope. Barreca. That's fine. Close enough.
Let's go. Okay. Best-selling author, women's humorist, internationally renowned speaker, and professor of feminist theory. Welcome back, Gina.
Thanks.
So we just heard the humor can be beneficial even in the darkest places, such as the Holocaust. Can you talk about the therapeutic value of humor?
Yeah, I would love to mention, just following up Melissa Mork, there is an amazing film, a documentary, absolutely compelling, by Fern Perlstein called The Last Laugh. And it has comics that, I was going to say Mel Gibson. It's a really big mistake. Mel Brooks. Okay. Mel Brooks and other great Jewish comics talking about the idea of using Hitler. I mean, as a comic figure, that the worst thing that you could do to an oppressor, to a fascist, is to make fun of him.
Mm-hmm.
Fascists don't have a sense of humor. Fascism is not known for taking itself lightly, right? That's one of the things. Oh, those fascists, they know how to have time. Never been said. But Perlman, especially, there are two women who are Holocaust survivors, and they tell their stories about the time in the camps. And one of them says, like, I can't tell. There are no funny stories I have because it was too profoundly traumatic. The loss was overwhelming. And the other woman was talking about the times that they were allowed to put on shows, the song and dances, that they could sing their grief, that they could take moments that were diversions, but that also, again, celebrated their humanity and the parts that couldn't be taken away from them, their selfhood. And that creativity fueled a part of that. And of course, humor is a great demonstration of creativity and humanity. So, okay, so I needed to get Perlstein's out there because it's on, you can rent it anywhere. It's a great movie. So yeah, I mean, humor is about light and darkness. Humor is about illumination. It shines lights into those darkest corners of the things that we don't want to discuss in public. So it's about emotions that people are often too embarrassed to talk about. But what humor allows us to do, as great literature allows us to do, as a lot of creative endeavors allow us to do, many of us are brought up to live in fear of humiliation. Somebody's going to find out about this. I did this. Somebody's going to discover this. We're going to live in shame. But what humor allows us to do is transcend the sense of shame or humiliation and turn it into humility. And humility is a grace. And humility is something that you can share with someone. The humble man, the humble woman, those are the people whose company that you want to be in. And because there's a generosity to being humble. Because when you're humble, you know that you're not special. You know that your story is everybody's story. So the people who can do humor well, and I've never been a comic. I have a 2-book minimum, not a 2-drink minimum. People who really do comedy, I mean, they come off as bitter, or they come off as frantic, or they come off as angry. But you go in there with a combination of a strength and vulnerability at the same time. You are walking out there, putting yourself on the edge, right? It's stuff on the edge. It's on the line. But on some level, you are trusting your audience to get it, or at least to make the attempt to get it. You are not out there. It's like being a good writer. You are not telling somebody about your emotions. You're provoking their response so they feel the emotion that you're putting across. Yes. Great comics, usually they don't laugh at their own work. The audience laughs. A tragic actor, tragic performer, they are not themselves weeping. The audience is weeping, right? So it's not demonstrating those emotions, it's provoking those emotions. And that comes out of a kind of humility. But again, that's grace. That's gracious.
Well said, and I much appreciate it. I'm gonna turn it over to Brian, but I think you and I go to the same hairstylist. I have the light here, then I have the dark here.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years, though. I don't think you've been doing this long, sweetheart. Yeah.
Fantastic.
This costs a lot of money to do this.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, Gina. Great to meet you.
I'm getting an echo. I don't know if it's you or me, or there are two of you, or.
I'm beside myself.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Now this is what's written. Unusual for a woman, you're happy to publicly admit your age, weight, and dress size.
Yes.
And I suppose that's true.
I really, I don't know whether it's women or men. I have no problem asking people how old they are. I don't have an
I'm
issue.
not going to tell you my dress size. So I guess there is that. You talk about growing old, and I love this, joyfully and disgracefully. How do you do that?
I don't have an alternative. That's not you. I mean, I'm like,
the gracefulness is right out the window already.
That was never an option. You can't, end up like, Judi Dench if you started out like Joan Rivers on roller skates. I don't think that that's a possibility for me. Although I would love to be, if there's a way to be Judi Dench, I would love to be Judi Dench. And I bet she's a riot in her real life. In fact, her biography, I recently read her biography. She sounds like a piece of work. But yes, I think that, again, to own your own story, to be able to share it, to be able to pass it around, to make other people feel comfortable, to let somebody know that I say it to audiences because women will try to guess each other's age and weight like we're going to win something at a state fair. And men just care if you're over 18. So it's I hope they care if you're over 18. And it is it's just easier. I mean, talk about difficult conversations, that it is easier to cut to the chase. Life is short, boy. And it is easier to have a real conversation where people can speak honestly, swiftly, make their points, and use time wisely than to spend a lot of time circling things in what is called polite conversation. I think that impolite conversation doesn't have to be nasty. It could just be real. And that those are some of the hard conversations.
Yeah, the word vulgar gets such a negative connotation to it, but vulgar used to simply mean common.
Right. And I think common still has a negative connotation. And it meant the non-aristocratic. It was the uneducated. And in the days of no education, where the definition of a gentleman, and it was only men, of course, who got, and white men and straight men and Christian men, and you're noticing there's one word that's always the same in all of that, the definition of a gentleman was someone who'd forgotten his Latin. Because if you used your Latin, it meant that you were a preacher or a teacher, and those were jobs. And the idea of somebody who had to work for a living meant you were not aristocratic.
That's right. So, I mean, you talk about how does humor change as you age? You touched on it, just to kind of sum up on it.
There's more to make fun of. You have a longer life. You have more experiences. An old person understands what it was like to be young. Young people don't understand what it's like to be old. So I'm still teaching. I'm leaving here to go teach my classes at the University of Connecticut, and I have no problem talking to my students as somebody who is 50 years older than they are. I mean, it's not like I'm pretending to be something else. So I say, when you're 50 years older than you are now, this is the difference. So yeah, I have rules that I am happy to set, that I don't negotiate. In my classes, nobody has on an electronic device. There are no phones. There are no laptops. There are no, cell phones on your hand. There are no
smartwatches. And
I mean, if they have an ankle bracelet from their parole officer, they have it removed. If they have a pacemaker, I need a note from their doctor. There is nothing in my class. And I have colleagues who say, my students won't turn off their devices. My students are not allowed in the room if their devices are not in their knapsacks before they enter. and that is non-negotiable. And I teach 2.5-hour classes, and many of my students have not been separated from an electronic device, from using a device for an hour and a half. They get a pee break after an hour and a half. They have not used a device for an hour and a half in their lifetimes.
Mhm.
And I'm glad to be the one that they're scared enough by, or that they respect enough, or that they listen to make that happen when they haven't done it in other places. And I'm funny, but I am strict in terms of what I expect from the class. So you get to be in the class, you play by my rules. That's a privilege of an old person and an experience.
There you go. That's right. And you take them down and give them a few shots if they don't listen.
Not
So-
quite that. I don't have a taser either. They took that away from me. No electronic.
Oh, no electronic devices. It's the good old fashioned billy club for you. Gina, gosh, I wish we had more time. You are tremendous. We have your website up on the screen now. Viewers, I implore you to go and check out more from Gina. That is wonderful. So thank you so much for coming on the show. We were honored to have you as a guest. To find out more about shows on the Thriving Women Network, please join our Facebook group called Thriving Women TV. Post your question or comment on our website. Next, we'll be hearing from TEDx speaker and pioneer in the field of applied humor research, Karen Buxman, on how to better navigate uncomfortable conversations in the workplace using, yes, you guessed it, humor. She asked the question, when is a question not a question? But I'm confused. Isn't that a question? But anyway, don't forget. And I must tell you, gotta hear this. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by Biz in Your Box. Biz in Your Box is your board of directors for your business. BYB provides the coaching, connections, and a culture to help you grow your business. Oh, and also is the board of directors for your business. And something about going to our website and signing up for our magazine. Do it!
Have you ever headed into a meeting knowing the conversation might get rough, and then somebody looks at you and says, "What were you thinking?" That happened to a student of mine. Her project hit a snag, her timeline slipped, and before she could even explain, her boss hit her with that question. Ouch. Malcolm Kushner, in his book, The Light Touch, describes something called the hostile question. The hostile question is not a sincere search for information. It is anger, frustration, and blame wearing a question mark. And here's the catch. If you push back defensively, now you have two nervous systems in a cage match and nobody wins. But healthy humor can help. Not sarcasm, not put downs, not snappy little comebacks that win the moment but lose the relationship. I'm talking about light, self-aware humor that lowers the temperature. So if someone were to ask you, "What were you thinking?" you could respond, "I was thinking that looked so much better in my head." That kind of response doesn't dodge the issue. It just lowers the threat level enough to make a real conversation possible. So the next time somebody hits you with a hostile question, remember, you don't have to match their heat. Because sometimes the best way past hostility isn't a sharper answer. It's a lighter touch.
Neurohumanist. Oh, did I get that right? Neurohumanist. Karen Buxman.
You got this.
So serious. Rona, what were you thinking? No, you're tuned to Uncomfortable Conversations, and today's topic has been the power of humor and how to use it not only to deal with challenging conversations, but also as a therapeutic tool. And it's been a fun-filled but also thought-provoking episode. So make sure that you listen to the replay. And of course, we want to thank today's amazing guest, best-selling humorist, author, and feminist academic, Gina Barreca, for not only making us laugh, but also making us think about life in a different way and not take ourselves so seriously. And I have to ask you that again, Rona. What were you thinking?
That I'm glad you don't have a taser. Oh, no, wait. I was thinking that you can support us by visiting our website and posting a comment about today's topic. You can watch this and recent episodes of Uncomfortable Conversations on E13 TV, our website, and listen to our recap on Spotify. If you are a student, parent, or teacher, we encourage you to turn into Every Child Can Learn. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by Biz in Your Box, the first of its kind Prime membership for thriving entrepreneurs and small to mid-sized business owners. Biz in Your Box is your board of directors for your business. BYB provides coaching, connections, and a culture that helps you grow your business. To learn more, visit our website and subscribe to our TWN magazine. Uncomfortable Conversations is produced by TWN, a franchise media network for content creators and entrepreneurs that need a media team. I'm Rona McBain. Have that conversation and maybe include some humor in it. Get sassy.
Yes. And I'm CJ Grace, and we will be back Wednesday, April the 29th after our spring break. And so we will see you then.